Welcome to the Project Management Happy Hour. Our aim is to share frank and honest discussion about real-world issues in project management, but do it in a way that's not too dry, though it might get a little salty sometimes.
Hi, I'm Kim Messenger, a project manager, coach, and trainer, and I've made all the mistakes that I'm going to try to help you avoid today. With me, as always, is the amazing and the sparkling Kate Anderson.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. We're here together in the same room. It's pretty cool.
We are.
Yay.
It feels, and with cameras to record us. That's a 30 Rock joke. I don't know if you watched that show.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
It's okay.
Okay.
That's going to land good with someone.
If you're not familiar with Project Management Happy Hour, we are casual but honest talk about tough subjects in project management. We don't pretend to have all the answers, but hopefully we've got some useful lessons that we can share.
Yeah, and there is a membership component to this. You can find us at pmhappier.com where you can be part of our membership community. Our membership community includes many activities per month that we're doing together in terms of growing our skills and becoming more confident project managers. It includes resources on the templates and other types of resources we have for you that relate back to the podcast, as well as getting to know other very cool project managers just like you. Go sign up today by going to pmhappier.com/membership.
Absolutely. So how should we kick off our podcast today, Kate?
How dare you? How dare you dad pun me into this episode? This is our first time together and you want to kick it off with a pun?
Absolutely.
Well, what the saving grace here is that I love meetings, and I would love to talk today about the perfect kickoff meeting. Do you like kickoff meetings?
Yeah, I do like them because sometimes they can get a little tough, a little grindy, but it's better to have that. If you're going to have troubles in the meeting getting alignment, it's better to do that early on. But aside from that, I guess I do love kickoff meetings because it's a fresh new day. It's a fresh new project. We've got a new scope of work. I've got a new team. I've got new stakeholders. I got a new sponsor, and we're going to start this beautiful new project. Nothing has gone wrong yet. What is not to love?
Exactly. It's all downhill from here. So today we're going to talk about kickoff meetings and how to run the perfect kickoff meeting. And so I think that the first thing I want to say about that is that kickoff meetings are about alignment and clarity. So your number one goal in a kickoff meeting is going to be to get everybody on this project team, all of your stakeholders, aligned. So how do you start your kickoff meetings? Like when you're like, oh, I'm going to go and I've got a new project. How do you set that up?
Well, it depends on the project, really. And I think we talked a little bit about this earlier. Your approach to kickoff meeting is going to be maybe a little different if you're an internal project manager with an internal team.
Yeah.
Versus if it's an external team, you're acting as a contractor and you're coming in and working with another organization. So from an external organization perspective, if you're a contractor, you want to get your internal kickoff done. So you might have a series of kickoff meetings, an internal kickoff with your internal team before you even talk to the customer.
Ooh. Well, then let's start right there at the beginning at your internal kickoff meeting. Because if you're somebody who works inside a company as an internal project manager, you're mostly only going to have internal kickoff meetings. Sometimes you have them in coordination with a vendor, but we can talk about that from both sides whenever we get to that. But an internal kickoff meeting, the first thing you want to do is get everybody together who was part of selling or agreeing to this project and get aligned on what's going on. I think I would say before you even have your kickoff meeting, the first thing I would do would be I would want to understand from the person that's assigned me the work, what is the work I have been assigned so that I can bring that scope of work clearly to the rest of the team in the kickoff call.
Yeah, that's actually almost a little bit of a theme here is that you are before the kickoff is not like call number one. There's work that goes ahead of that. So if you might have an internal kickoff with your internal team members, but what you're talking about, you're even going before then and saying, okay, you boss, executive, want me to come deliver this project for you. What does that mean to you? What is this about? What are your expectations of me and how can I make you successful through this project?
Yeah, exactly. So I would start with, at an internal company, you're going to have things like, maybe we'll have a list of names here of what these things could be.
All right.
Yes. So whenever you're trying to get your project started, you might have a statement of work or a project charter or a project proposal or project initiation documents or scope documents. They can also be called PDDs, project definition documents. But there's got to be something somewhere that says we all agreed that we're going to invest the time and resources to make this project happen. So, and here's what's going to come of it. Hopefully that document includes things that are part of the first 5 questions, things like what the success criteria is, how much people have set aside for it, the team maybe that will be part of this, when it needs to be done by, any driving factors. Ideally, there's been some sort of like business proposal type language that's incorporated in this document. And that'd be the first thing to read and then take to the person who's assigned you the work and potentially also the executive sponsor and say, just want to make sure I've got this correct in my brain before I pull anybody else in to make sure they understand what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, so you're doing your homework.
Yes.
Collecting all the information you can, doing your research, do your homework, try to understand as well as you can, and then talk to the people who made those documents and make sure that you actually do understand what their intent was when they put these documents. Because it can, as well as they may have documented the project, it can still be a bit of a telephone game. There's still opportunity for you to misunderstand the importance, the goals, the important things in that project. So it's really good. You need to be the first person, I guess, to get aligned.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So first, you're trying to center yourself. What is the project trying to deliver? And you're doing that by validating it with these other folks. And that is before you put together the kickoff meeting. So you get your own alignment, and then maybe you've had a bunch of one-on-one discussions. Maybe they've been Slack discussions. Maybe they've been phone calls. Maybe they've been meetings with notes. And then you collate all that into either, if a charter doesn't exist, create a charter. You can also put it into a project overview template. We have a project overview template as part of our membership resources to say, like, here's all the information we have about it. Circulate that document and then put the meeting on the calendar for your kickoff agenda.
It does. And, when you're doing that research and talking with the different stakeholders, it doesn't have to be a big deal.
Totally.
You have to measure based on who you're speaking with. But it doesn't have to be, I like to schedule a formal agenda to debrief you on your project charter. You can just call up somebody and say, look, my name's Kim. I'm going to be running your project. And before we get to the kickoff meeting next week, I'd really like a chance to talk with you, maybe get a coffee, and just get an understanding of what is your vision for this project and how can I make you successful. Even keeping it low-key casual like that can make it a lot easier.
Yeah. And that also doesn't give the impression that you are ready to get somebody, oh, you said you wanted this, I'm gonna get you, right? If you just have a chat about it, then there isn't that same pressure as like, oh, this person's trying to do a scope change or get out of the job or whatever, right? Like you're just checking in to make sure you're aligned with their expectations. So when you come together at your kickoff meeting, here is what I think your agenda should be.
2 men enter, 1 man leave.
Yes. That is the goal emotionally. Or many men enter, one whole man made of all those other men leave. And I hope that's a horror story for someone. But specifically, I would say that the agenda for a kickoff meeting should include 1, introductions. Often not everybody on these teams have worked together before, right? So if you're doing something internal and you sold the work, maybe the sales guy's never met this engineer, right? Maybe this sponsor's never worked with this particular project manager. So introductions are a great thing to do. If you're doing this solely for an internal project, there are lots of times where folks have not met everybody that work on the team. So introductions is always strong. If everybody knows each other, skip this step, but introductions important to me. After that, you're going to recognize these from the first 5 questions, and we'll go over these in detail. But after introductions, you're going to talk about project success. Why are we doing this? You're going to talk about project scope, which is what are you doing, including any deliverables that have been called out. You're going to talk about project schedule, the timeline by which this needs to be done. You're going to talk about project budget, how much money you have to get it done. Project team, including roles and responsibilities. Project rhythms, I'm going to talk a lot about this, which is like, how are we going to work together? And then the last thing you're going to cover is project risk issue, escalation and change procedures and decision makers. So if something goes wrong, what are we going to do? Who are we going to talk to when things go wrong? We need to escalate. We got to change something. Who are we talking to? My ideal kickoff meeting uses these things to set the bar for what a project with me is going to be like for the rest of the project. So I want to come as prepared as I can with those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9 things, was 8 or 9 things, so that I can show my stakeholders I'm somebody worth working with, worth trusting. I'm showing them, like, I come together to these things with my ducks in a row. I'm not going to waste your time whenever you work with me. I'm going to bring you all the information you need to make decisions. Maybe I've already even checked in with you on these things. So this is I think that you can use this meeting to say, I'm showing up with all this information, and set that expectation that they work with you the same way that you're working with them, as a version of building maybe your first trust brick on a project.
Exactly. And I was just going to say, it's your building. If you follow our discussions about trust bricks, trust-bricks.com, uh, it's the very first opportunity you have to start building trust. You're setting expectations and meeting expectations. And it's the beginning of a pattern that you want to carry out through the entire project.
Yeah, agreed. So whenever you're going into project success, which is why are we doing this? I think the most important thing to do here is to put it clearly in plain words so that everybody can like grok what you're saying. Like, we don't want project to success to necessarily be something like, oh, we're going to install this little, exe into this little data center, and then we're going to have these things happen. It's like project success is like the reason why we did this was to help us through some sort of change and get some sort of outcome at the end of it. So potentially, if you're doing a migration to a new tool, right, the goal is a reduction in call volume, let's say, right? If we're going to implement some new help system, we're going to reduce the total call volume that goes to our call centers. That could be a project that you do.
See, what I like to do in that part of the conversation is, what was the term? When we spoke with James Lutier, a hippo, the highest paid person in the room,
Yeah.
right? That's going to probably be the executive sponsor.
Hmm.
And this is something I will coach them on in advance to say, look, when we start this meeting, I'd like to hand it to you and give you 5 minutes to talk
Yes.
about why this is important, why we're all gathered here today, why you initiate this project, and I guess, and what is our success? What is success for you, and what are we trying to do with this? And then that starts off, I think, in the right way, driving the fact that we've got high level authority, we've got referential authority from the executive sponsor for this project, and it gives them a chance to voice what this project means to them. Because although you're delivering this project on their behalf,
Mm-hmm.
it's technically their project.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who probably have the most to gain or lose by the success or failure of this project. So it's nice to be able to give them a little bit of a platform to say their bit.
Yeah. And that also makes me think of change management with our friend Tim Creasy with AdCar, right? Where it's one thing to have some schmuck project manager, myself included, show up and be like, I've got these dope assignments. I've got it all handled. Do it because I said so. No, no. What you're saying is do it because your boss said so. Your boss that's in charge of promoting you and seeing the work that you do, like, let that executive sponsor carry the weight of communicating like why they should be invested in this. Like, don't make that your job, make that your sponsor's job, so that it takes weight off of you. And that, I think, moves them from awareness to desire in terms of the AdCar model. Because whenever, like, oh, my boss does care about this, my boss is looking at this, like that is powerful.
It is. It's very powerful. That's a great way to get started. And usually they'll say their part, and then most often that's what they'll just kind of sit back through the rest of the meeting and let you do your thing after that.
It's important that they're there so that you can like ping them if there's like bickering between other folks. But yeah. But let them have that moment. And that's sponsors also like practice at how to do that, right? Like, they practice being able to speak clearly and concisely so that they can get their message across. Like, this is something they are strong at. Let them do that.
Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So we talk about success. Then you go into your scope document. I don't want to belabor going through scope, I feel like.
Oh, I do.
Oh, you do? Belabor away.
I will. Let me prepare to belabor here. So coming from a place where most of my projects were, I came in from the position of being the external party.
Okay.
Our scope is the statement of work.
Mm.
And before this is some kind of a sales process. So there was the account manager and then an engineer, and they talked about the solution with the customer, and they developed the statement of work to try to capture what the project deliverables were. And they encapsulated that in the statement of work, customer signs it. And then out of nowhere, I parachute in. Oh, hello, I'm here for your kickoff meeting. And so alignment is so important for us, especially when it comes to the scope. And so one of the things that we do is I will summarize, not line by line for a statement of work, but we'll actually go through and spend a fair part of the kickoff meeting as an external contractor going through going through the main deliverables to make sure there's alignment, because so often there's a misinterpretation where something like an example that I've seen way too often in my career is during the contract negotiation, the customer says, "Hey, I would love to have this by the 1st of April." And the salesman will say, "Oh, we could do that if you sign in 2 weeks." 3 months later, they sign the contract. And then we have the kickoff meeting and say, "All right, you're going to be done in April." And we say, "What are you talking about? This is a 12-week project. And, so we'll be done later in the summer." And they say, "No, no, no, your salesman said this." And so now we've got a conflict right here. And so being able to go through very early on and get alignment on those expectations, particularly around scope, can be really important, especially in a contract situation. So we do spend a little extra time going on it, which might be different for an internal project.
I think the only reason why I said I don't want to belabor it is because we've talked about this a lot in other podcasts. So I agree with you. That is an important part of what the point of a kickoff is, right? And what you can do at that level is you can go back and forth between the person who wants to see the work done, the person who wrote down the scope, the people who are doing the work, and you can make sure we're all aligned on what those deliverables mean, instead of one person saying, "We're going to do this thing. Great. Moving on." Instead, you can focus on all right, one of the deliverables is this new, if we stay with the call center thing, right? We're implementing some tool to get call volume down, that's going to do some sort of, AI chatbot stuff before they get to us, right? So it's okay, what is implementing the AI chatbot? Is it that there's a little, hover in the bottom right that works? Is that all we want to do? And you can chunk that into either clearer deliverables to make sure folks are aligned. And you can also make sure or start your process of understanding expectations that people have that were never written down as actual scope deliverables.
Absolutely. And you want to suss that out as early as possible, like at the kickoff meeting, because the later you identify those gaps, the more painful that's going to be to get sorted out.
Yeah. So up next would be to talk through the schedule, the timeline. And one of my favorite things to ask during the timeline is who set these dates and why? Why do these dates matter? I hate you. Don't tell me how to live my life. That's how I feel about those things.
Yes.
I want to say, you told me you want this work done. Here's what I can do in that time frame is what I want to say. But it's a great moment to ask, is this arbitrary? Is this regulatory? If it's regulatory, what are our options if we miss? If it's not regulatory, it's based off of a season. We have to do it for a certain season. When's the latest we can launch within that season? Understanding what's driving dates is huge. And so the less than what the timeline is, the most important thing to get out of that is what is driving that timeline.
Exactly. And I think it's fair to have the conversation to say, it's okay if we don't have a plan, but we need a plan to get to a plan. Or in this context, it's okay if we don't have the exact dates, but we need to have a date when we're going to get better dates.
Exactly.
And sometimes as a PM, you might go in and you might even deliberately set the expectation that once we get through planning, some of our dates might change, because most people, including us sometimes, we hear a date and we latch onto it. "Oh, you said April 1st. That's when we're going to get it." I'm like, "No, I said that was tentative." "Yeah, but you said April 1st. And so it's setting expectation around those schedules.
Yeah, very, very, very much. Yep, agreed. After schedule, we talk budget. I will say, if you're a contract PM, you're part of an agency or consulting, budget is far more important to cover for those folks, because your customer signed a contract for a specific amount of money and they don't want to pay you more money than they signed that contract for. And they might, through things like change orders, but at least at the beginning of a project, the expectation is if you signed a $75,000 contract, that what you are going to pay is $75,000 and ideally no more for that scope of work that you've agreed to. So internally, I guess I'll pause. We should talk about this on your side. You've done far more billable work like this than I have. How do you cover this whenever you're kicking off?
We cover it. So yeah, so what we have to, so there's different terms and expectations. So from our side, actually it's from either side, is how are the finances run? Is it If there's are there contracts involved, and how were those managed? Is it a milestone based? In which case, what are the milestones? How are those defined? Who's going to sign off on those things? And everybody should be aware that if there's milestone billing, there's people are going to be paying attention to the details on those milestones, and we should all be aware of that. Or is it time and materials billing? In which case, we want to understand that, so we understand what our burn is and how much is in that bucket, and what happens if we start to run low. Can we get more, or do we have to start trimming scope and changing our expectations in other ways? So definitely, yes, it's a very key part of it, because misunderstanding here just cascades down and makes everything worse.
Yeah. And I'll say that if you are an internal project manager and you're working with an external company, one of the things that I look for at this budget part is like, how are you going to communicate your billing milestones to me? Whether you're billing monthly, it's like, how can I be informed of how many hours we've spent? I want to be matching. If the contract said it's going to take, 400 hours for us to do a particular part of the work, I want to be able to know, like, okay, how far are we into this work? How many hours have we spent on it? And so that so that as the person responsible for financially managing our business's spend, I want to assure that if you say we're 20% into this and we spent 50% of the hours on it, I want to say, tell me more about that. Like, is it progressing to plan? Because if we need to adjust or reprioritize, I want the power or time or space to do that as soon as possible. And I don't want it to be a surprise. Ideally, my external project manager is managing that well, but there's a variety of levels of project managers on these engagements. And some companies say, we don't need you to give us a project manager because I have one. They're great and they're going to manage it. And so then it gets even trickier in terms of how that's managed. I know most organizations don't like to run that way, but
It just drives me nuts, because if you're the customer and you tell me, well, I don't need to give me a project manager because I have my own project manager, then I'm going to say, that's fine. I'm going to go T&M on all my resources. And if they spend 3 times, 5 times as much, that's not my fault because you're project managing it. I'm just giving you the resource.
totally.
And so I think it's very, very short-sighted when customers say that. They don't understand the value of project management, and they don't know what they're getting themselves into.
I completely agree. But just something to bring up when you're going over budget in the beginning is,
I just had to say something.
yeah, hey, you're valid. I agree with you. But, those are things to consider because we don't know who's listening and what type of situation they're in. If they're in the total, like,
Get project manager.
love that. And then the next team up would be the team, including roles and responsibilities. One of my favorite things to cover at the beginning of a project. So it's great to cover roles and responsibilities, especially if you are going to have like a architect and an executor. Like if somebody's going to going to plan the thing and somebody else is going to build the thing, and maybe this builder thinks that they want to be the designer, right? It's good to call out roles like that early on. And you want to call things out like who your architect is, who your engineer is, who the, vendor is that you're working with if you're getting anything outsourced or produced, right? You want to call out all those working partners as soon as possible on a project.
And it's really important for the broader team too, because you've got different departments. And one of the things I like to do is when we're in the room in the kickoff, we're talking about all the people who are going to be involved in the project and say, who did we miss?
Yes.
Because very often you miss, like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe we should have information security in here. And InfoSec, of course, is going to say, yes, I should always be there. But
yes, they are.
And so that broader sense of what are the players from a departmental perspective, and also setting expectations from a stakeholder perspective. So you're doing some project and there are a lot of department leads in there. This is your time to say, okay, you're a stakeholder. You are not part of the team. I will inform you and we'll pull you in when we need you, but you're not going to be in our day-to-day or whatever. And figure out what the appropriate role is for everybody. And sometimes you have to fight to pull people in, and sometimes you have to fight to keep a firewall. But this is where you start to identify where there might be gaps or overlaps and start setting those expectations among the broader team.
Exactly. And if and when problems come up later in the project, and as an example, if your architect and your engineer are bickering over who does what, you can go back to what you originally said. And if it needs to be officially changed, you can officially change it, which I think is valuable and good. And I also feel like some of what you talked about there sort of leans into the 2 next items, which are project rhythms and escalations. So what I like about including project rhythms in the kickoff is if what you know you need to be successful is daily stand-ups and you're like, this thing isn't gonna freaking work if I don't talk to this team every day. And like some products are like that. So if you know that, say it in that meeting. And if that's and like it doesn't have to be that. It can be everybody's going to put their status into this document at the end of every day. It could be we do all of our team communications in this Slack channel or this Microsoft Teams folder or this particular Notion location. Like name where you're going to be working and then ask the people in the room to commit to doing that with you.
Yeah, getting commitment in the room is really key because it's one thing you say, hey, I want you to do this. There's quite another for them to say, yes, I will do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think you can also bring up like, hey, I want to run a daily stand up. I'd like that to be at 8:15 every morning and it's going to be from 8:15 to 8:30 if that would work for a project team of that size. But I'm going to do an 8:15 to 8:30 stand up and that's in Pacific time. Does that work for everyone on this call? Right? And like literally have that meeting queued up on your little laptop and then once they say yes, hit send, be ready to send it immediately. You're looking for as much buy-in as possible because so many people are like, oh, meeting looks great. My boss is here. I'll say whatever I need to, but like do what you can to lock them into those things right away. And so that you can also have accountability conversations later if they say, well, I don't like Slack. It's like, well, we all agreed to use Slack. So what's changed for you since we all agreed as a team to use Slack? That's where everybody's looking. That's where the managers are looking. That's where the stakeholders are looking. Why does this not work for you? Right? Like that's a more powerful conversation than having to chase down our infamous Todd G because he's like, I don't want to use Slack. I just want to text you my updates at the end of the day. And it's like, I don't want you to text me. I want you to send it to where everybody is. I want you to DM me, right? Like do exactly what we agree on as a team. So I think project rhythms are huge to cover. Cover things like where communication will be posted, how often your meetings will be. If there's a steer co, cover when the steer co meets, right? On a big enough initiative, you might have a steer co that meets monthly or quarterly. So cover off on all of the various rhythms that will be happening. You can include an attendee list. If that's too chunky for a PowerPoint slide, you can have it in an appendix or put it in another document. This is also a version of a communication plan, but I think people would see communication plan and get bogged down in it. So I like the word rhythms in terms of communicating to people who aren't mired in project management language, but I'm pretty big on the rhythms. And after that, it's time for how to handle when things go wrong.
They don't. If something's going to go wrong, you want it to go wrong in the kickoff meeting. Sort it out early, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But what I think is great in this at the kickoff is to suggest, hey, whenever we have an issue come up, what's our escalation path going to be? All issues should be brought to me, project manager. Please bring your issues to me so we can align on how we present them to stakeholders so they get a streamlined way to solve problems. Have that executive sponsor who was here earlier say, come off mute and say, yes, Kate, great idea. Really love that. I can't wait for you to present me the issues. I love the way you do that, right? Like that's what we want them to support that and give you that referential authority in the room. And also to just start a conversation around, like, if you want to introduce something like risk management, that you start that conversation at the kickoff, like, how are we going to think about when things go wrong? And, start talking through escalation points and whatnot. You can also say something like, we're going to develop, or like, we're going to be implementing risk management, or we're going to make a formal escalation path that'll be formalized by date. Anything to add?
Yes, because we talked about this is alignment. So it's not just alignment on the work you're going to do and the people who are going to do it, what they're going to do and not do, but also how you're going to do it. So that's, I guess in summary, that's a lot of what we're talking about in the kickoff meeting. And talking about how was really good to start off with. To put it in another framework, we've got that, forming, the team foundation,
Forming,
storming, norming,
performing,
adjourning. And so what we're doing, and we want to move through that as quickly as possible. It's going to take time and work.
Mm-hmm.
So we're starting off in the forming stage where people are going to maybe keep the cards close to their chest. They're not going to say what they really think. They're not going to necessarily share their real opinions. And you want to start doing things that help get people to open up. So if you do icebreakers, do an icebreaker, try to engage people in the room. And you want to start moving down that path to get out of that initial formation stage to where people actually share their opinions and you can talk about things and get them out.
That makes me, so when I started this, I was like, you start with introductions. And you were like, what? You could start your introduction and do a stupid little icebreaker that's like, give us your name, where you're located, and share your least favorite project mess up and how crazy it drove you. What's the worst project you've ever been on? Right. And that can even also open up some of those avenues of trust to start saying like, well, I also hate it whenever an issue is brought to me when it's too late to go back on. So that's something that I'd like to make sure we address, here. So that's another way you could build trust on a team really early in the kickoff meeting.
Yeah. And I have a little technique I can share.
Please do.
I talk about it in my RAID log meetings or RAID log trainings. And it's something I learned from a very wise and old project manager it's a tool that's really effective in kickoff meetings and getting alignment, in particular around project sensitivities and project priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And what she would do is she would, on a whiteboard or on the wall, she would build a big matrix, and it would be one rectangle, another rectangle directly below it, and another rectangle below it, maybe 3, maybe 4. And then she would make something that looked like maybe on printer paper, but they were giant Post-it notes. And then on these, she would put the key parameter, key constraint for the project. So you've got scope, schedule, budget, but maybe you've also got operational impact, reputation, patient impact, maybe if you're in healthcare. And so she would put these priorities out there, and to facilitate discussion, to start some of that spicy discussion when you're forming and having disagreements, and she would say, all right, now in a perfect world, in a perfect project, we meet every single one of these. We are on time, we're on budget, we're ahead of schedule. No patient is negatively impacted. There's no negative operational impact, and everybody's happy. But we all know sometimes we have to make trade-offs. Sometimes things go wrong. And so I would like to stack rank these based on what we all feel as a group are most important. So if something goes wrong and some of these have to be affected, what is the one constraint of these that cannot change, that absolutely there is no tolerance or least tolerance in this project for? And so you can go back and forth, and this can be a really good spicy discussion because everybody's probably not going to agree. And then finally they say, all right, well, patient impact has to be number one. Okay, that's number one. Great. What's the next one? Spicy discussion, spicy discussion. All right, well, we have no more money. That's it. If we have to take longer, if we have to give up scope, if we have to go down for a little bit, that's okay. But we can't get any more money for this. Okay, that's number 2. And this is a great discussion to help get alignment, to really start to dig down into what you're doing, why you're doing it, what the constraints are. And that's a lot of fun with Post-its.
I love that. I think that is very good. I love anything that facilitates spicy discussion.
And Post-its.
Yes. But I love anything that puts the constraints, we're going to call them, more tangible for your audience. And also think about other kickoff meetings that have happened before, right? Have they ever done an exercise where somebody's put out a bunch of cards or Post-its and said, hey, go ahead and prioritize these by your priorities? And so you can do that with like a dot exercise. If you're virtual, you can do it with a Miro board or some other virtual whiteboard. Like there's ways to facilitate this even if you're not all in the same room. So I love that as a way to build opinions and get out the dissenting agreements early on. And again, if you have that executive sponsor in the room with you who's most excited and their job is not on the line, but tied to the success of this project, if there's a disagreement because patient impact is? Yeah, so patient care cannot be done. And then they're going back and forth between like money and some other success criteria. That executive sponsor can like just say, like, make the decision in the moment what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
I have another tool
Tell me again.
that I recommend for every meetings to capture the decisions and key outputs and action items. If you capture any risks or opportunities, you should capture them. Do you know what it is?
I have a guess.
It's a RAID log. Yeah, okay. I go on about RAID logs, but Honestly, if this is really a great place to set the stage.
Exactly.
As a project manager, you're like you're saying, you're setting the precedent of what you are and how you're leading.
Yeah.
You're setting a precedent. I'm organized.
Hmm.
I am capturing all this stuff. If we're making a decision right now, your name, all your names, they're going on this decision. You're accountable, and that's the game we're going to play.
I think that this is something that a RAID log is a tool that would go in your project rhythms, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I am going to run this project from a RAID log. And you're going to see me use that today. And I'm just going to put up here, just as an example, our first decision, Kate Anderson runs their projects from a RAID log. And I decided that because this affects me, it impacts me. It also impacts all of you, though. And so as we go through today, if anybody has an action item or something to follow up on or identifies a risk, we'll capture it here. The other brilliant thing about this is we've also done like goblins in the meeting room, right? Like people who show up and like are kind of trying to derail. Because you can have a kickoff meeting where somebody is like, I'm only here to tell you how bad you are at your job, and I don't want to do this project because it's change. I don't like change. Take that person's feedback, put it in the RAID log, and say, thanks. We'll follow up on that in a meeting after this one. Love that you brought that up. I'm excited to dive deep into that. And you've taken control back of the meeting. You look like a very effective project manager who's going to handle things that come up. Because it's probably not just you who also thinks that our grumbly little baby is tearing down the vibe and preventing you from being able to deliver what you're trying to deliver.
Yes.
The next thing I want to cover on kickoff meetings is how you, project manager you, knows if you were successful during a kickoff meeting. Because the thing we've talked about this whole time has been alignment, right? And so I think that it can feel like what we're saying is you're only successful at a kickoff meeting if everybody leaves aligned. But what we are saying, to be clear, is that that is the goal to have. But sometimes a kickoff meeting can end with a lot of disagreement and a lot of follow-up that needs to happen basically before the project can officially kick off.
It goes back to what I said earlier. It's to rephrase it. It's okay if everyone's not aligned if you have a plan to get aligned. But you can't do that until you identify where is the misalignment, where's the miscommunication, where are we not on the same page. That's okay. Identify that as quickly as you can, so you can do something about it.
Yeah. So your kickoff meeting, if it ends in your stakeholders disagreeing on the success of the project, that's not a bad outcome, because that is handling a problem before you're so far down the road that you can't address it. You're able to address that before any hours had been put in. That's the right time to address that problem.
So let's talk the worst kickoff meeting you can have. And I will describe it to you because I have run it. I am guilty of having this
I love
happen.
this.
Is, all right, welcome to our project. We're going to do a project. Let me show you my slides. Slide 1, this is what we're going to do. Slide 2, this is how we do it. Slide 3, timeline. Slide 4, risks. Any questions? And that's the extent of the conversation.
Yeah.
So the worst kickoff meeting is one where you've got slides and you're just talking through slides with no engagement. Everybody's bored. No one's paying attention. No one's engaged. You have not had a kickoff meeting. You've just taken up an hour of people's time. You haven't done anything productive. So if you can get people riled up, have spicy conversations, find the disagreement and surface it, that's can be a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're saying a good kickoff meeting should include some dissonance, some disagreement. That's a good kickoff meeting.
Maybe not throwing of chairs, but
Too far? Too far?
find the discussion amicably and let's figure it out.
Yeah, very much. Yes. Yeah. I think some of the best kickoff meetings I've run have been when I've been handed a project and everyone's very excited about it. And I look at it and I go, this is a mess and I can't execute this. And I went and I talked to like one team and they said that they had all the resources. And I talked to another and they said they have no resources. And so I have like a half-resourced, half-scoped, like murky project that I can't get people to agree on. And I have a bunch of people doing like he said, she said. And I put them in the room and I say, all right, all right, so glad. I just want to bring everybody up to where I'm at on this project. What I want to do is kick off this project today, but I have some questions that I want us to go through. I'm going to talk about scope, budget, and the team. and I'm looking for everybody to engage. So if we're in person, I would ask everybody to close their laptops. And if we are online, I would say, can I get hands up, thumbs up that we're ready to engage on this? Like I would make them do something in order to prove to me they are paying attention to my meeting and say, great, okay. I have heard a couple different success criterias for this project, and it could be me that I'm not sure how they go together, but I'd like to run them by you and understand where we're at for success. And like I would have done this first with my sponsor, like I would have wanted to bring that up in front of them. But if I couldn't get it in front of them and I could only get them in this room, I would do it like this. And I would say, I have these 3 different success criterias. One is reducing call volume. Another one is just installing the tool. And another one is adoption of the tool. These are 3 very different success criteria. And I want us to align on what our ultimate goal is. If we want to we have options, we could phase out the project and make one of these each part of the success, like success at each very milestone of what we're doing. We could go back to the drawing board because I've also seen that this is driven by like a cost reduction initiative, but I couldn't draw the throughput. Can we talk about that for a bit and to bring that discussion to one place?
Yeah, I like to see in the kickoff meeting, the PM, you're a human conflict detector, like a metal detector. You're like, there's a conflict there. So you want to be really sensitive and listening to the conversation and trying to get people to talk so you can identify where those are. And you'll hear it as a PM in the back of your head. You hear the, whoa, whoa, oh, wait a minute. There's something here. Is it a coin or is it an exploded ordnance? So
Exactly.
but and then one of the ways you can approach that as a project manager is you say, okay, like you say, I think we might have a problem here. Can we just talk about this? Because it seems like we might have a conflict. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just must understand. But maybe let's talk about this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen to your internal.
Yeah. You can also ask if 2 people insist on saying, anything, but I'm going to pick on success criteria here. If they insist on saying the same success criteria 2 different ways, ask them why they're saying it that way, right? If one person says success is adoption and the other person says success is reducing the amount of time that folks spend on calls, those are 2 different success criteria. Everybody could be using the tool and they could be spending more time on calls. 20% of your team could be using the tool and they're spending less time on calls, right? There are nuances within those success criteria that you can ask follow-up questions about. So if 2 people keep insisting on it, just ask them to elaborate. Like, what does your ideal, end state look like for these things? Like that's really what you're listening for.
Yes.
Good job, us. We've done this a lot of times.
Well done. It's like we've done a kickoff meeting or 2.
Or 400. Yes. But the original point I was trying to make was that, and like, if you can pull out that conflict, that's really what the success criteria is of a kickoff meeting. You want everybody to leave aligned, but if there is no discussion, there's no way to know if they were aligned. So we could maybe call spicy discussion a leading indicator of your success of a meeting. But the total of success would be that people come out aligned. Because in your meeting, right, the worst one you've ever run, they're coming out aligned because nobody said anything, right? So
nobody said no, so we must all be good.
Exactly. So you're looking for both discussion and engagement and then also alignment and getting. And it's most important to get the discussion and engagement. And if you don't get alignment right away, but you do get discussion and engagement, that is still a successful kickoff meeting.
Yes.
Shall we wrap up?
Yeah, because all we have left to do now is the rest of the project.
Exactly. It's only downhill from here.
Let's wrap up, Kate.
So I think what I would say is start your kickoff meeting before the meeting by checking in with everybody on what you've got about the project.
Kickoff meeting is not the first meeting.
Yes.
The other thing is for me, it's about alignment on what you're doing, alignment on the people and what they're doing, and alignment on how you're doing things.
Yes. You can use this meeting to set your standards for how you're going to run your project. Take the opportunity to show them how great you are. Come prepared, come ready for conversation, and don't be daunted by conflict.
And to tag on your last word, conflict is not bad. I want to say you want it, but conflict is not necessarily a bad sign.
Agreed. Cool. Are there any you may be in trouble ifs, or we covered those?
I think we've covered them. You might be in trouble if you ran a kickoff meeting like the one I described and nobody says a word. Oh, memories.
And I guess also you might be in trouble if you don't run a kickoff meeting at all.
Oh, yes.
It is really a very useful tool to get folks on the same page. Sometimes it's the only time you have everybody who wanted it to happen in the room, because folks may like their part may be so small they never talk again. So do have them. Try them. If you've never tried it, try it.
And maybe, I don't know if it's you might be in trouble with, but kind of a pro tip,
I love that.
as it were,
Mm-hmm.
would be in that kickoff meeting. One of the first things you should talk about is, okay, is there anybody else that should be here that's not here today?
Yeah.
And really start from the beginning and understand who are all your stakeholders.
Agreed. Yeah. Never assume you have everybody you need at the beginning of a project.
Is that a kickoff meeting?
Yep.
I think that's our kickoff meeting.
Incredible. This is our first time recording this podcast. We're going to tell you guys about it, like recording with the cameras. So like and subscribe, leave comments, tell us that you love us and are excited to see this. We did this because you asked for it.
We did. We didn't want to do this, but you asked us to do it. So here we are.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us how much you love it. And hey, if you are a project manager who's looking to be able to be part of a community of people like you who work through problems like this, we want you to join our membership community at pmhappyhour.com. Go to pmhappyhour.com/membership. We have monthly and annual versions of the subscription available. And I'm really proud of how cool our community is. There's people getting promoted, people changing jobs, people going to new careers. There's a lot of really great resources we'd love for you to be part of.
It's kind of like this, only interactive.
So with that, Kim, cheers.
So that's it for today. Well, thank you for joining us and good luck with your projects. And we hope to catch you at the next happy hour. Cheers, Kate.
Cheers, Kim.